Hello guys, and welcome back to Joe's Ventures. And today we're doing part 44 of our Jurassic World Evolution 2 mod spotlights. We take a look at some of the wonderful mods people have been making and compare them to their real life fossil counterparts. And today we've got a very interesting assortment of some cool animals. We got some more non-dinosaurs. We got a few couple crocodilians and a couple remakes and a couple other cool dinosaurs that we get to talk about. So we're going to be starting off today with some wonderful remasters by Pickle. The first one of his remasters we'll be looking at is the Dimetrodon. Let's wait until he opens his mouth because I want to have a look at the teeth because this is one of the best, I would say, paleo edits of Dimetrodon yet, as we'll get into. Let's just wait, hopefully. We'll do it. There we are. So this is the Dimetrodon. We can see some of the wonderful changes to the head here. You can see you got a bit of dental work. You can see the two different types of teeth there. They've almost got like the two big canine ones here and the big canines at the bottom, or incisors, however you want to say it. And then you've got these other teeth here. So Dimetrodon means kind of two types of teeth, which is quite interesting. So this is Dimetrodon, so di means two, metrodon, two teeth. So it's got two different types of teeth. And that's really cool, reflected in the remake here, rather than kind of your just T-Rex head that the original Dominion one had. Though I do love the color. Some changes as well. We have a look. There's been some minor changes to the sail, made a little bit more rounded. And what I really like is the changes to the body. It got quite a bit of a tummy tuck. So these guys, as I mentioned a couple times, these guys are synapsids. So they are not reptiles. They are sometimes coined mammal-like reptiles, but they're not really reptiles at all. They are synapsids. And they are more closely related to you and me than they are to alligators or Tyrannosaurus rex. So really, really interesting in the evolution there. We can see he's got a bit of a tummy tuck and much more upright legs. It really helps for high walking. So that's what has been kind of guessed from Dimetrodon trackways and things. It seems that these guys had much more of a high walk, very similar to how alligators walk, but kind of like all the time instead of just walking and then like laying on its stomach. So kind of like that. So much better to able run and catch things. You can also see some changes to the skins there. So this guy doesn't really have this osteoderms anymore. From what we know, synapsids remains and like skin. It seems that Dimetrodon had kind of either big scales on its tummy, but also may have had like just basic skin and potentially hair. We really don't know. There is possible hair from the Permian, or it is quote unquote possible, but we don't really know. And some other changes we also have is that great shortening of the tail. So often Dimetrodon, well, the opposite problem is that most dinosaurs in Jurassic World Evolution 2 have, most people make the dinosaur tails, or most Jurassic World people make the dinosaur tails too short, but these guys made it too long. So it's been shortened up a bit, and though they probably didn't do too much tail dragging, that's kind of just how the rig fits. But I still really love it, and it's a really nice paleo edit. I really love Pickle's edits because they really taste my sensibilities in terms of paleo art, and he gets the anatomy right, and I do love it. So let them run off and do their thing. Another one of his paleo edits we've got coming around, we have got Megalosaurus. Look at this wonderful guy. We'll have a look at you because you are quite a pretty one. But we can see some of the wonderful changes here. You can see now that it doesn't have those really ridiculous head crests and the really, really wide head. You can see it's made a lot more boxier and more like a rectangle. You can see that there. Looks really, really nice. Megalosaurus was one of those first dinosaurs discovered. It's changed so much over the last like 200 years or so. Initially, it was described as like a giant iguana, but now it kind of looks like this. So it really shows how much paleontology has changed. But we can see it's got that big boxy head with those large teeth. Very similar to almost like the T-Rexes before the T-Rexes. Those megalosaurs were very big boxy heads. and they also believed to be the potential ancestors of Spinosaurs. So they may have had a little bit more recurved teeth, things like that. It looks really, really interesting. You can also see those little crests there. It looks really, really cool. Quite a long neck as well, and these big beefy arms with those large claws. You can almost see like the beginnings of a Spinosaur in them. They've got those big claws on those big arms. They probably use them for grappling prey and things like that. Not too dissimilar from, as I mentioned, Spinosaurs. Also, Allosaurids, very similar. Really, really cool. You can see some changes to the body there, much more rounded body. These guys, these Megalosaurs, had quite a round, long, boxy body, very much like an oval. Looks really, really cool. You can see they've got the lizard hips. And well, I see some bigger changes to the feet. I really like these changes to the feet. These feet were made, looks like, quite a bit bigger, and they look much more like ostrich or emu feet than most Jurassic Park dinosaur feet. As you can see, they've got the long claws there. Often people underestimate the keratin at the end of the claws there, and then you can see those feet got much more padding to them. Look very much more like, and the same with the legs as well. They look very much more like bird legs than the original Jurassic Park ones, which kind of look really weird if you compare their anatomy. And you can also see here quite a long tail. So yeah, really, really cool animal. Definitely a mid-sized theropod. These guys got to about 8 to 9 meters long and about 2.5 meters tall at the hip, and weighed about just under 2 tons or 1900 kilograms. So definitely a really cool animal, and I really like that even some of the animals that are kind of lesser known, well, not lesser known, these guys are one of the first dinosaurs discovered, but lesser appreciated dinosaurs are getting paleo edits, so that's really, really cool. So we're going to let you run off and do your own thing. And our last pickle animal here, last remake, we have got Carnotaurus. You can see this wonderful animal here. Carnotaurus is a very interesting animal. It's quite a light-footed predator. So we're going to start off with the head as per usual. So we can see these guys have a very interesting shaped skull. It's quite short and deep. So it was mostly broad, but it didn't taper really. And they also have these quite large horns, as you kind of see there. So, looking at some more recent research into Carnotaurus as well, those large horns most likely were bony cores for a keratin sheath. And looking at other dinosaurs such as Borealopelta and modern examples such as like bovids, it seems like the keratin would have covered about an extra half of the length. So, for example, if you had a spike or a bony core that was about a meter long, then the extra bit of keratin would add another like half meter or about 50 centimeters to it. So, that would be a meter and a half long. So, that's a good general rule in nature, and if you're drawing or reconstructing dinosaurs, if it's a keratin, got keratin horns or anything, make it like an extra half longer. So that's a little rule there. But those really interesting shaped skull and deep skull. And it's very similar to most like types of Balisaurs. These guys most likely also had some degree of binocular vision, and this would have been really helpful for them catching prey. So it seems these guys were adapted for chasing small, fast prey. So it would allow them, their short head would allow them to deal with the forces of running prey and things that are moving at speed and things like that. So really, really helped as well. And one thing as well is that we also have ossified hyoid bones from these guys, so we know a lot about how these guys' tongues and maybe even how their body was like. So they're actually the only known non-avian theropod where a bacille is known. So they most likely had those well-developed air sacs that birds have. So they would basically have oxygen constantly going through their body, which would allow them to potentially run at quite a high speed as well, so able to keep up running fast. So that's another really cool adaptation that could have helped them be much faster runners. And in terms of their forelimbs, because we'll move that next, we can see that neck there. We can see some changes here, not those. With the Balisaurs, we know that they had 4 fingers because they asked a type of ceratosaur. So the ceratosaurs had those 4 fingers, as you can kind of see there. And they were very vestigial or near vestigial, as you can kind of see there. And unlike in the movies where they hold them like to their side like that, most of the Balisaurs had their arms held back like that as well. But really weirdly, they have well-developed scapula, which is the shoulder bone there. And a lot of people think, like, why was that so developed? But a lot of people think it was because they had more powerful neck muscles to be able to catch prey and things like that. So it would have been a better anchor. And one cool thing about these guys as well is we can see some changes to the skin there. With Carnotaurus, a lot of people, because we found a lot of skin of Carnotaurus, a lot of people interpreted a lot of the skin that we found on it as kind of osteoderms and things like that. So they were kind of a big, bony, like dinosaur. But from what we know, they had mostly mosaic of kind of polygonal scales as well. They were about 5 to 12 millimeters diameter. And there was these bumps that were interpreted as osteoderms, or like these very similar like scoots compared to like hadrosaur dinosaurs. They're about 4 to 5 centimeters in diameter and up to 5 centimeters tall. And so that people thought that could potentially be bumps osteoderms. But more recent studies, especially like a recent study in 2021, they had a look at the skin, and it seems to be very much like randomly distributed, like bumps along the side. So it didn't look like this neat row there. Kind of was just random across the body, which is quite interesting. And there was quite highly variable depending on the area of the body, things like that. So they really took a look into that. Like some areas they would have been small, some areas they would have been big, some areas they would have had much more polygonal scales, and some would have been secular or circular. I mean, they would have been around the tail and scapula and the thoracic region, so around the chest and shoulders and the tail. And the sizes of these scales has actually been thought of as a way to help it regulate its body temperature. So very similar to modern elephants today or other large animals today. They have these able to thermoregulate through their skin like that. So that would allow them to shed that excess body heat. And being a large animal that's running around a lot, potentially, having that kind of adaptation would actually really help it survive in a warmer environment. So yeah, another really cool animal as well. And we can see those feet there also being changed. You can see those claws are a little bit more extended. I like the changes to the feet, much more bird-like. And you can also see that tail's been extended. So much longer tail. Really nice to see a really nice Carnotaurus. And I like seeing those big horns as well, so definitely a big fan. So we're going to let you run off and do your thing as per usual. So that's all of Pickle's edits done for today. Really, really awesome work there, Pickle. Next up, we've got a new species. It's pretty much all new species from now on. We have got Astrodon. So this wonderful guy, this Astrodon, they are a type of sauropod. Their name means star tooth, which is quite interesting. They were quite a large herbivorous dinosaur. They measured about 20 meters, or about 66 feet long, and were 9 meters in height, or about 30 feet, and about 20 metric tons in body mass. So they were first described in 1858 with dinosaur teeth, so they're kind of described as Astrodon. And there was also some other dinosaurs found by Marsh a little bit later in 1888 that were named Pleuroceras, Namus, and Atlas. And because these teeth were found with other specimens as well, they were found to be the same species as Astrodon, so they were lumped into each other, which is quite interesting. And in terms of the habitat, these guys are found in the US, so I believe they're found in like the early Cretaceous as well, about the Albium stage. They're found about 112 to 110 million years ago. And where they lived has been dated throughout that Aptian, as I mentioned. They've been found in Maryland, but also parts of Washington, D.C., Delaware, and Virginia. And this area at the time would have most likely been a general flat plain with streams running about it, and quite similar to most modern coastal regions such as Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Mississippi, so places like that. And fossil material assigned to Astrodon has also been found in the Antlers Formation, which stretches from southwestern Arkansas to southeastern Oklahoma and down into northeastern Texas. And while that has not been dated radiometrically, it's at the same kind of age as the Aldua Formation. It seems because they share similar species, they were quite similar in time and had been estimated to be about 110 million years ago. And in terms of paleofauna, these guys, even though they're not famous, they lived with some pretty famous animals. In both kind of Oklahoma and Maryland, they lived with animals such as Tenontosaurus and Dinochirus, not Dinochirus, Deinonychus, also Dryptosaurus, Capitolosaurus, and Acrocanthosaurus, and those kind of interesting animals like that. They also lived with a bunch of different pterosaurs and different types of crocodilians and fish. So it was a very rich environment they were living in. And one thing as well, they were featured in they were the national state dinosaur of Maryland, and they were also featured in Raptor Red, which was a novel done by Robert T. Barker, as Pray for Utahraptor, and was also the state dinosaur of Texas before it was sadly replaced by Sauroposeidon. So yeah, got snubbed by that, but still really, really cool animal. Really do love the change. The only thing I would say that's pretty much wrong is, I love the spikes though, the spikes looks cool, but the feet are wrong. As I keep mentioning, the sauropods didn't have claws really, and some even lost like the first digits of their toes. They're basically walking on their knuckles. These guys were macronarians, so related to things like Camarasaurus, Brachiosaurus, things like that. So they would have had a dew claw and like a fleshy hoof, and they would have had 3 claws there that would turn to the side that allowed them to dig. But yeah, really, really cool animal. Do love these guys. So we're going to let them walk off and do their thing. And next up, I'm going to need to make sure that these guys get credited. The Astrodon was done by Darth Summit 19YT, so really did a wonderful job and a great first mod, if I do say so myself. But next up, we have got this next one is a bit of a collaborative effort. This is done by Trippy28, Game Videos for Life, Netraptor, and Master Doot. We have got the Camp Cretaceous Notosaurus. So for you Camp Cretaceous lovers, you guys will love seeing this one. So this is Notosaurus. Notosaurus, which means illegitimate lizard, so it's just kind of a sad name. These guys are an extinct genus of sarcopterygian reptiles. That's the group that includes plesiosaurs and ichthyosaurs and a few other marine reptiles. And they lived from the Jurassic period, and they lived about 240 to 210 million years ago, with fossils living distributed across North Africa, in Europe, and China. And one of the better known of the Notosaurs. So these guys, in terms of their habitats, these guys were considered semi-oceanic and probably had a lifestyle considered similar to modern seals, that they probably didn't come onto land as much, as evidenced by their legs. They very much form like a paddle-like thing, and they wouldn't be able to really be as efficient on land as the Camp Cretaceous Notosaurus. And in terms of size, the average, they got about 4 meters long, or about 13 feet. And they had these long webbed toes and potentially a fin on their tail, which is not reconstructed here. But there's a few different species of Notosaurus, and some species got larger, with getting between 5 to 7 meters, or about 60 to 23 feet long. So that's about the size of a large male saltwater crocodile. And while swimming, they would have used their tails, legs, and web feet to propel and steer themselves. And they also have this quite large and broad skull with long needle-like teeth, which have been used to catch prey and other marine creatures, such as squids and belemnites and small fish, and even small marine reptiles, potentially. And this was being trackways attributed to these guys found in China, which were interpreted as the animal trying to digging into the seabed with its paddles to try and stir up prey from the seabed and catch it. So that's really cool. And in many respects, their body actually resembles a lot like the later plesiosaurs, but they were not as well adapted as plesiosaurs to their environment. And it was thought at one time that one branch of Notosaurs may have evolved into pliosaurs, and another would have grown into plesiosaurs, so things like Dimetrodon for a pliosaur and Cryptocladus for a plesiosaur, but we don't really know too much about that. And with few dozen species, there's some been found like around Germany, to N. giganteus is from Germany, and there's also some from China, things like that. Quite a few different species have been named. But yeah, really, really cool animal. Definitely a big fan, especially for you Camp Cretaceous fans. The one thing I'd really like to see if these guys ever come into Jurassic World Evolution is that they should be in the lagoon, because I think the lagoon is desperately missing out on some aquatic animals because we don't really get too many of them. We've only had like a couple in a DLC. And plus, I think it'd be cool to have these guys like have an animation of crawling on a rock or something, just to give the lagoons a little bit more life. So yeah, really, really cool. Really group effort with this one, and I'm really happy that we got to see this one. So big fan. So we're going to let you run off and do your thing, of course. And next up, we've got some... This next one's done by Master Doot, and is a Crocodilian. We have got Barenasuchus. So this is a really cool animal. We do love a Barenasuchus. So, though this guy looks in place in the Mesozoic, this guy is actually from South America in the Miocene, so about the middle of Eocene and Miocene. So lived to up to about like 10 or so, or even 15 or so million years ago. So a very interesting animal. So Barenasuchus means Barena's crocodile and is a cebecid Mesoecrocodilian, and is found in Argentina, Peru, and Venezuela. So this animal was first described in 2007 with the holotype coming from Venezuela, and that consists of an incomplete articulated skull. And similar to its relatives, these guys were terrestrial crocodilians, and they had zyphodont teeth, so big teeth like that, which was very similar to those of theropod dinosaurs. And they were compressed laterally with serrated edges, and they faced backwards, and this kind of shows it was most definitely a predator of some kind. So the preserved part of the holotype skull is about 70 centimeters in length and about 40 centimeters in height, and is estimated, using the proportions of other cebecids, these guys would have had a skull between 95 and 115 centimeters, and that would put the animal's total length, if you estimate, about 6 meters from its close relatives, like Stratatosuchus from the Cretaceous, or nearly up to 7.5 meters long if you base it on the modern saltwater crocodile, which actually makes it the largest known cebecid in the world, which is quite interesting. Though it's really hard to make estimations on its size and weight because of how incomplete it is, but if we want to take a stab at estimating its weight, based on lengths of Ceratosuchus and Crocodilius porosus, which is the saltwater crocodile, these guys have estimated to weigh between 1,600 and 1,700 kilograms, or a little under 2 tons. So they would have been quite a bit larger than any other animal of terrestrial carnivore of the Cenozoic. So bigger than Spilodon, bigger than Arctodus, bigger than Megalania. So these guys were the largest terrestrial predator in the Cenozoic. So the really cool thing about South America is that at the time it was being separated pretty much through the most of the Cenozoic, and it's only really connected within the Pliocene, the last 5 million years. So South America was basically a giant island filled with all sorts of weird animals. So that included cebecids like that, included giant rodents like Ajotussaburgia and capybaras, also terror birds, one of those weird notoactylids like and things like Macrocenia, Glyptodonts, giant ground sloths. So a really interesting array of animals and mammals were down there as well. And these guys were related to, they were obviously a type, as I mentioned, they seem to be Notosuchian. So the Cebesosaurids are kind of Cebesasuchians, belong to the family of Cebesidae, which is kind of considered sister to those Notosuchians. And Notosuchians are a group of animals. They have so many weird teeth. If you know Smilosilosuchus, which is a small herbivorous, like burrowing crocodilian from Madagascar. So really interesting animal. And they seem to be related to them in that regard. But they were their own group. They all kind of did their own thing. And then these guys actually managed to survive, at least in South America, up into the middle Miocene. So that was about 10, 15 million years ago. So that's why we have this wonderful big crocodile here today. Not today, but in the Cenozoic, I mean. But yeah, really cool. I do love these guys. This is made by Master Doot, and it's really cool to give those more underrated species a bit of love. Definitely a big fan of these guys. Master Doot did a wonderful job. So, next up, we've got by Furlong and Game Videos for Life, we've got another Crocodilian. We have got Caprosuchus. So let's have a look at another nice crocodile. Let's have a look at one that's not so weird. Let's have a look at you. Let's have a look at you because you look pretty. So this is Caprosuchus, a really cool guy. So its name means boar crocodile because if you look at its face, it's got these really large, almost like canine teeth that very much resemble a boar. And this guy is a Majanosuchid crocodilian, a crocodiliform. So these guys are known from just a complete skull, that's the holotype, found in Niger. And it was described in 2009 by Paul Sereno, along with a couple other types of crocodilians. And the skull itself is about 507 millimeters in length, with the lower jaw measuring about 603 millimeters, so about 50, 60 centimeters long, with the original animal being estimated about 6 meters long, so about the size of a saltwater crocodile. But new estimates have brought that size a little bit more down, so about 4 meters, so about the size of kind of like a smaller, like a really small male, or even a female, large female saltwater crocodile, but other smaller species. And what really sets these guys apart, as I mentioned, those really large caniform-like teeth, and they would have been a crocodiliform. And had those. That looks really weird for a crocodile, and it actually looks quite similar to one of its close relatives, which is Mahajanosuchus, which is a crocodilian from Madagascar. And the snout of these guys, you can show, has got that generalized proportions, and they look quite similar to those of crocodiles, because it was originally interpreted that these guys would have been kind of more land-based crocodilians and hunting prey on land. But looking at the raised nose and also the raised eyes, it seems that these guys had a lifestyle more similar to those of modern crocodiles, so hanging out near and around water, so quite interesting. It seems these guys also had stereoscopic vision as well and things like that. So these guys are in the family Majungasauridae, which is closely related to Majungasuchus from the Upper Cretaceous of Madagascar, and they share several characteristics. And these guys are Neosuchian. So they are sister to, as I mentioned, the Notosuchians, and they form the kind of their own group with Mahajungasuchus, the Mangajungasuchidae, but they are related to some other weirder crocodiles as well, so that's really interesting. But yeah, really big fan. This guy comes with like 15 skins or so they're based on all sorts of different like pop media things, and then you also got some more realistic skins. This one's, I believe, the spotted skin, so it's believed to be on like a kind of caiman. This one here is based on Primeval, so if you guys seen Primeval with the dark colors and that red kind of stripe there. This one, I believe, comes from Jurassic Park the game, or not Jurassic Park the game, Jurassic World mobile game. So lots of different skins from different places and things like that. So if you guys love your variants, things like that, looks really nice. So yeah, really cool. Game Videos for Life and Furlong has done a wonderful job with that one. So next up, second to last, we've got a really cool animal here. We have got, we'll let them run off and do their thing though. We have got by Hulk L1215, very interesting modder there. He isn't in the official like modding Discord, so it kind of just pops out with really cool things. But we have got Yichi. So look at this cool little guy. So this is Yichi. So Yichi is a Sanscopterygiid dinosaur from the late Cretaceous of China. So it's the first and only specimen found of Yichi was found by a farmer in the Motodeng Valley or village in Hebei, and was donated to or sold to the Shandong Tian'an Museum of Nature in 2007, where people take a look at it. And because it's so well preserved, you see many of the soft tissues and things like that. People were like, what the heck? And they even put it through a CAT scan. And the scientists leading the initial study, included by Zijing and a bunch of other scientists, they described it as Yichi. So Yi in Mandarin means wing, and Chi means strange. So its name means basically means strange wing in English. So that's really, really cool. So in terms of its description, it's really only known from a partial specimen, as we mentioned that one there. And it would have been a relatively small animal. The weight estimate is about 380 grams, so about a little under a pound. So not very big animal. And very similar to its relatives like Epidemzectorix and Epidemtosaurus. These guys would have had very short, blunt heads, as you can kind of see there, and these downturned lower jaws with a few teeth in their tip of the jaws. And they would have also had these very long forward-facing teeth as well. And like other Sanscropterygians, these guys would have had long fingers as well, with the third being the largest. As I mentioned, these guys are kind of related to that group of their theropod. They're in their own kind of smaller group. And as we get to the really weirdest part of these guys, they have a long, like, kind of spur from their wrist that creates this kind of wing. So they actually, believe it or not, there was a competition called All Your Yesterdays where someone created a gliding Sanscorpteropterid, I believe that's how you say it, and they actually managed to like come up with like originally, and then we found Yichi. So basically that kind of shows we can actually kind of predict things in the fossil records. So that's really interesting. So the other known specimen also has a heavy coat of feathers, you see there. So these guys, based on its classification as well, they would have had very simple brush-like feathers, but they also have these kind of filament ones as well, especially these display one on the tails as well. And they would have had a thick coat, with the longest feathers being around the shin bone there as well. And the metatarsus would have also had feathers on it as well. And small patches of wrinkled skin showed that they had this membrane on its hands things as well. And it really shows that dinosaurs are a lot more weirder than we think. These guys were almost doing their own thing. Instead of using feathers as a base, these guys took the more the bat and pterosaur route and put like skin as their basis for their wings. And this is kind of considered a great example of convergent evolution, as it's quite similar to animals such as gliders, like sugar gliders and flying squirrels. And it seems to be more similar to that in that regard. And we also know a little bit about how it's colored, because melanosomes do preserve sometimes, and you can look at the shape of the melanosomes and determine the colors. So it seems that these guys had a more yellowish brown hue to them, or with a black color as well. So that's quite interesting. And in terms of its classification, these guys are Sanscropterygiid. So these guys were Maniraptoran theropods, so related to kind of raptors or dromaeosaurs and birds today. And it seems they would have been related to Epidendrosaurus and Epidendroctorix, and would have been the most basal-clade and paraaves. So in terms of paleobiology, these guys, Yichi and potentially other Scanscoriopterids, these guys would have had a type of wing kind of really distinct from any prehistoric or modern bird. And they may have actually replaced bird-type feathers with these membranous wings, which are way of being like independently evolved. So they may have just like come to a different, got you different homework, they came to a different conclusion to get the same results, which is quite interesting. They worked it out differently, but they got the same results. That's the best way to put it. So these guys would have potentially either been able to fly. There's been lots of research whether they would have been able to fly or glide, but kind of the most recent analyses looked at these guys were most likely using their wings to kind of glide around, and they may have actually used WA, or basically wind assisted incline running, to help take off the ground and help climb better. So they would have been using that very similar to bats, and even a modern analog has been compared to kakapo, because kakapo, even though they can't fly, they still have quite big rounded wings that allow them to catch their fall or help them to climb up, because they can run up and use their wings to kind of give them a little bit of lift as they're climbing, so things like that. So it would have been an advantage to them. But it seems like these guys may have been specialized and mainly lived in cloud forest with these high glide speeds and ratios. That means they would have been very efficient at kind of gliding between small spaces in the canopy, and they would have made them a little bit lower risk of predation as well, which is quite cool. But it's believed that potentially they could have got outcompeted by more capable flying vertebrates as well, and that may have led to their extinction. But in terms of its paleobiology, these guys are found in the Tertian Formation. So these guys are from the Middle to Late Jurassic, so about 159 million years ago. In the same formation, there's other Sanscoropteroids, such as Epithemsectorex and Sanscoropteryx. There's also ginkgos, conifers, and many other types of prehistoric plants. And other vertebrate fossils, they seem to live in this quite warm environments with large lakes or subtropical temperate and quite humid as well. We lived with animals such as Tripodon, some flying pterosaurs, Tian Yulong, which is a quite cool little dinosaur, some other famous basal birds such as Archaeornis and Kaozhong, which are both known from colors and they're really pretty, and some early gliding mammals as well. So very interesting animals. So Hulk did a really wonderful job giving us a really underrated dinosaur. I never expected to get Yichi in the game, but I'm really glad we did because I think he's such a cool dinosaur, and I do love talking about him. So we can let him run off and do his thing. So next up, last and definitely not least, we have got another remake of an animal. This is done by OG Bear, so he does really wonderful remakes and things like that. It's not Suchomimus, but very similar to how Furlong did his Spinosaurus. We've got a new Spinosaurus done on a Suchomimus rig. So let's have a look at that. So really, really pretty. I'm definitely a big fan of these guys. So let's have a look at you. I'm gonna have a look at you because you're so pretty, but I love this red skin. Really, really awesome. But we're gonna have a look at you. So we can see some of the changes there, very much made to fit much more what we know of Spinosaurus now, because Spinosaurus has gone through quite a few big revisions. The most recent one being this large paddle-like tail, which was in 2020, and also we know that it's got really short legs now because of 2014 papers. Which is really interesting, but we can have a look at that long crocodile-like snout that you can see going on there, that quite long neck. I really love the colors on this guy. And you can see this one's kind of interpreted a much more of like a half-circle sail, which is really nice. Very long neck, known of Spinosaurus as well. We actually do know quite a bit more about Spinosaurus these days. We don't know too much about its arms though, but we can see it's very similar to other Spinosaurs with those large claws. Very much able to potentially grab and fish, things like that, along with these hooked teeth, which looked very much adapted for catching slippery prey that includes fish and potentially small dinosaurs, things like that. They were most likely on that seafood diet because if you seafood, you got to eat it, kind of that kind of thing. But yeah, really, really awesome. And then we can look at that half-sailed and that long body. And you can see those larger feet with those big claws there. So Spinosaurus has been quite a bit of controversy around Spinosaurus because is it an aquatic, is it semi-aquatic, and was it an ambush predator like a sailfin, or was it an ambush predator like a crocodile? But really, it seems like it had a really unique ecology. It's definitely its life from isotopes and everything. It seems it was very well adapted to the water. So I kind of like to interpret it as kind of those kind of snake birds or misangas or darters, where they're able to swim around quite a bit. They're not like extremely fast swimmers, but they're able to swim quite proficiently and able to catch prey, things like that. Maybe even able to shell them in, potentially like using their sail as a way to like lots of animals will actually kind of like guide fish into them and like corral them. So even like monitor lizards will do it, herons will do it, and things like that. So it'd be really interesting behavior if Spinosaurus had it. But again, that's speculation. But if you guys just want another version of as the Spinosaurus, it's another beautiful one because OG Bear is really, really great with skins. It looks beautiful. I'm definitely a big fan, especially this red one. I love the colors on this guy. So if you just want another Spinosaurus, this is perfect. And OG Bear always does a wonderful job. So yeah, I think this is about it. This is what we've got for today. So we'll let them run off and do their thing. But I think this will be a great place to end the video. So I really, really, really hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe. Always remember to hit the little bell icon to get notified about anything. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys like and subscribe, and bye-bye.